Welcome to Discovering You, a podcast that explores the intricacies of personality and how it impacts the way we navigate through life. What will you discover today? Hi, listeners. I'm excited to welcome you back for our first episode of Season 3. Hi, Heather.
Hi there.
How was your summer?
My summer was good. It went by too quick, but it was decent. How was your summer?
I would agree. Too quick, but yeah, it was good. I thought I'd ask like a highlight and a low light for the summer. So for me, I'll go first. My highlight, we went on vacation. We went to California. It was great. We've been there before, but this time we got to do some different things. We were in San Diego for a few days. We went to LA. I did a little impromptu armchair expert fan tour. Dragged my husband and daughter along for that. And then we also went to Laguna Beach, which was cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah. What would you say your highlight for summer was?
Well, I'm not entirely sure I've had it yet because we're leaving on vacation on Sunday.
Right.
I'm hoping that's the highlight of my summer. We didn't get to go on a couple of trips that we had booked earlier in the summer. And so I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to go hang out at the lake for a few days and relax.
That's nice. So the low light was probably not being able to get the stuff done that you wanted to do.
Yeah, the beginning of the summer just had a lot of things that didn't pan out necessarily. So last year we traveled a lot in the summer. It was the first year in a long time we'd been doing it. We were kind of excited about it. And then, life happens and we weren't able to go. That I think was the low light. I mean, I had a good summer. I got to spend time with friends and go for lunch and, get back to the horses a little bit more than I've normally been able to. So I feel like there was just more time.
You and I had a 4.5-hour lunch. That was fun.
Yes, we did. It was really fun. And I could have stayed longer.
Same.
Same. So highlight to come and then low light, life got in the way.
Of course, as it does. I guess my low light came really quickly on the heels of the highlight. Obviously had a great time in California, except the very last night, unbeknownst to me, my glasses slipped out of my bag in the restaurant we were at. We had to get up at the crack of dawn the next morning at 6 to catch a flight home. And by the time I realized I'd lost my glasses at the restaurant, it's closed. What can I do? So I have to fly back across the country. And long story short, didn't have my prescription glasses for 2 weeks and had to use an old pair. That was a struggle. Lots of eye strain, tension headaches. But you know what? I don't know. The message I'm kind of taking away when it first occurred to me, I'm like, I'm not going to function. How am I going to function? I have to go get this new pair of glasses, and I won't even get into everything with the optometrist. That was a whole other thing. But the point is, I think me especially, and I know others, I tend to jump quickly to this is terrible. Oh my gosh, I spiral. Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to have constant headaches. I'm not going to be able to function. And you know what? It wasn't great, but I made it work. It's probably just a good lesson to me. Like, you know what? Not the end of the world. You can figure this out.
Well, and in the end, there's some faith in humanity there, right? Because you did get them.
I did. That is very true. So there was
some person who
lovely
didn't have
general
to care.
manager of the restaurant and also wouldn't let me pay him to send them to me. You're right. Lovely. And pay it forward. I am today writing him a personal note and sending him a Starbucks gift card in the mail because
that's lovely.
Hasn't taken any payment. So let's do our usual check-in terms of how are we feeling? As we always do with our How We Feel app based on Mark Brackett's mood meter. What did you get today?
It was interesting. We're recording post Labor Day, so everyone's back to it, and there's a lot happening. So I always find post Labor Day gets busy in the industries that we work in. Everybody's like back to it, just like us. We're back to it. I was going through the app and I wasn't feeling high energy, but I landed in a high energy spot.
I landed in high energy too.
This is a word I didn't actually know the meaning of, so I had to click on it. And as soon as I did, which was random, it came up and it said, filled with lots of emotion. That's me. I am impassioned today. That's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling lots of emotions. Nothing's wrong. Like everything's fine, but it's just a lot of emotions.
Yes, me too.
'Cause I don't really feel like it's negative. It's just a lot to navigate.
Oh my God. Has this ever happened to us before? I also picked impassioned,
So that's your word too?
and neither of us have ever selected, never mind at the same time, but we've never selected that one before.
No, I didn't even know what it meant.
Wow.
It's just one of those days where I'm like, I'm not unhappy and I'm not happy and I'm not stressed and I'm not stressed and I'm like, there's just a lot happening. So I took that to mean a lot of different emotions, not like a lot of
Yeah.
one emotion.
Okay, we are super aligned for season 3, clearly, because the way you sum that up, just, yeah, not just one emotion, a whole bunch of things. Some things I'm excited
Yeah.
about, some things I'm worried about. Like as we speak, my poor baby Winston, kitty cat, is having an x-ray at the vet and had to leave him there to have it done. I was very amped up leading up to it because listeners, for those of you who have cats or know, like they absolutely hate to be taken out of their home. He hates his carrier, even though we spent a lot of money on buying him a new one, which we thought he would like because it's like a backpack. And we had these grand notions of, oh, maybe we'll bring him for walks in it around the neighborhood. No, he is not a fan. Anyway, that's where I am. But wow. We both got that word.
We are definitely aligned.
Okay, well, today we're going to be talking about how to become a super communicator. But before we dive in, let's do this month's disc analogy. Of all the metaphors, examples, and comparisons that I've done, social media has been the disc analogy that most resonates with people. I get the best feedback. They're like, oh, Victoria, I didn't necessarily understand it, but once you compared it to this, I got it. And honestly, I had removed it just for like a basic reason because when Twitter changed to X, I just couldn't be bothered to update it. And so I sort of removed it. But based on popular demand, I've brought it back. I give you an updated disc as social media. For D, we have X, formerly Twitter, and it's because it's direct, concise, and thrives in conflict. I is Instagram and TikTok. So hearts abound. There's no option for thumbs up liking. Everything is hearts. It's aesthetically pleasing and it's trendy. S is still Facebook, supportive, more space for connection and conversation. And C is LinkedIn. The focus is on facts over feelings and very focused on business. I read a really insightful book on the hiatus by Charles Duhigg called Supercommunicators: How to Unlock the Secret Language of Connection. Well, you can imagine that got my attention, right? It's totally in my wheelhouse. The book is really comprehensive with tons of great material, which I could never cover here, but I will try to distill down the main points. The author, Duhigg, starts the book by explaining why he was inspired to write it in the first place. He says, this book was born, in part, from my own failures at communication. He goes on to say that he was confused by his failures because, as a writer, he is an award-winning journalist, he's supposed to know how to communicate for a living. He recounts a story of a work project that he was managing, and he was doing very well at it, analytically speaking. So doing schedules and logistics. I'm actually going to put my guess in right now that I think Charles Duhigg has a high C. But he realized he was failing at connecting with the people he was working with. When they came to him with issues, he responded with practical fixes. He began to realize that they were looking for empathy, but instead of listening to how they were feeling, he responded with practical solutions. He also noticed this pattern playing out at home in his family life, and this became particularly frustrating because these were the people in his life that mattered the most. So in his quest for understanding, he came away with a key finding. There are 3 different types of conversations. And if we aren't having the same type of conversation with our partners, our colleagues, our family members at the same moment, we won't be able to connect with each other. Researchers have studied how our mind operates during different types of conversations. It turns out that different parts of our brains are activated depending on the type of discussion. Duhigg breaks down this research into 3 mindsets, each corresponding to a different conversation style. The first conversation he calls, "What's this really about?" And this activates the decision-making mindset. It occurs when we're focused on making choices, planning, analyzing. For instance, What are we going to do about the lower sales volume we're experiencing? Our brain's frontal control network, the command center for our thoughts and actions, kicks in, not just consciously, but subconsciously as well. So you may think, is this a serious situation? Should I offer a solution? Should I just listen? This what's this really about conversation is key to us evaluating options, planning for the future, and we needed to determine what we want to discuss, our goals for this discussion, and how we should go about it. This reminds me of what I do at the beginning of a facilitation or a workshop. I always try to set the intention to be clear about what this will be about and why it's occurring. The second conversation and mindset is the how do we feel conversation, and it is evoking an emotional mindset. This activates, among others, the amygdala and the hippocampus, which helps shape our beliefs, emotions, and memories. When we're recounting something humorous and it prompts laughter when telling the story, this is the emotional mindset. It could also be when we're having an argument with our significant other and feelings of anger or resentment arise. When we hear a friend complaining about a personal situation and we sense they need empathy, not advice, this is because we've connected to the how we feel conversation. And then the third conversation type is what he calls who are we? And this brings out the social mindset. This encompasses discussions about relationships, how we view others, how we feel others regard us. This can include gossip. When we're trying to figure out how our families or religions or political affiliations influence us, we are thinking about ourselves, other people, and the relation of ourselves to others. One study cites that 70% of our conversations are social in nature. Miscommunication happens when we are having different kinds of conversations. For example, Heather, if I'm worried or upset about something and I'm telling you about it, likely I'm feeling emotional and I want to vent or feel your support. But if you respond to me in a very factual, practical manner, we're not going to connect. I'm having a how we feel conversation in the emotional mindset, and you're responding to me in the what's this really about decision-making mindset. Lots
I
of
feel like that's
laughing
my
going
whole
on.
life.
Well, do these different communication styles remind you of anything?
They sure do.
Of course, this is the part where I'm going to relate it to DISC. The practical decision-making mindset aligns with high D and high C because both factors make decisions using facts over feelings, and they are very solution-oriented. So, Heather, this works out in the example I used because those are your two high factors.
Yes, I could relate to that.
You're a fan of offering the practical solutions up right away?
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we all are to a degree, right? But I think some of us, it's more natural or we lead with it. And then if you're speaking to somebody with the different disc factor and the different mindset, this is exactly what he's talking about, right?
Yep.
The emotional mindset tends to pair up with high I and high S, who are more focused on the feelings involved in a situation. All right, so this sort of aligns with me. I don't have the I, but I do have the S. Duhigg believes that supercommunicators are able to synchronize the conversations using a matching principle. So this involves recognizing what type of conversation is occurring and then matching each other. Basically, if someone seems emotional, allow yourself to access your emotions too. If someone is focused on making a decision, match that goal. If they are concerned about social implications, reflect that focus back to them. He's careful to point out that matching does not mean mimicry. There needs to be a genuine attempt to understand and connect with others. He says, the goal of a successful conversation is where you understand each other, not where you convince each other or where you come to agreement. Okay. Yes to that. Let me say that again. The goal of a successful conversation is where you understand each other, not where you convince each other or where you come to agreement. I think that's great because shifting the focus to shine our light on just the understanding part of it rather than winning a point or knowing you need to agree. I actually think this takes the pressure off. If we can reframe our expectations and see it that way, I think it's half the battle. Okay, back to the three conversations. They don't have to occur in a silo or one at a time. In fact, all three can be present during the same discussion. For example, your partner relays a situation from work that day where they encountered a problematic situation and they're stressed and they're unsure about what to do. At this point, it's the "what's this really about" conversation. As they continue to tell you about it, they increasingly express frustration and stress and how are they going to handle it. And here we have the "how do we feel" conversation. Then they move on to thinking about how their coworkers will react to the problem, which of course is the "who are we" mindset. One of the most poignant examples of the importance of communication in the book takes place amidst the backdrop of the pandemic. Duhigg tells a story about a doctor who was determined to prioritize the way he communicated to patients during the COVID outbreak. His focus was on saving as many lives as possible, and he wanted to express the importance of getting vaccinated. But he knew that preaching to people wasn't going to work. In fact, he witnessed a more senior doctor telling reluctant patients that since he was a doctor, he, quote, knew better than they did. Needless to say, that approach wasn't very successful. And here's where the third conversation, the social mindset, shows up. The doctor identified that social identities and ideologies were coming into play. And as we all remember, this became very politicized with people feeling very strongly about which social group they aligned with. Ooh, they were impassioned, Heather.
So it's not just you and I.
Right? He knew that he had to gain an understanding of where his patients were coming from and build a connection with them. Instead of lecturing them or judging them, he approached them with curiosity to try and understand what was motivating their beliefs. He engaged with them on an emotional and social level, and he had much more success than his colleague at connecting with them. Duhigg outlines 4 rules that he thinks are really essential for a meaningful conversation. The first one is pay attention to what kind of conversation is occurring. The second is share your goals and ask what others are seeking. The third is ask about others' feelings and share your own. And the fourth is explore if identities are important to this discussion. And what that means is this is relating to the social identities, which we just talked about. For instance, the whole, are you liberal or conservative or religious or agnostic, or back to COVID, the whole anti-vax thing. He also recommends using these guidelines for hard conversations. First, start a conversation by talking about guidelines. You'll say, hey, what's okay here in this conversation? Can we have things we agree on? And are there things that are just out of bounds? So right out of the gate, you do that. Then you acknowledge discomfort. Yes to this. This may be a challenging conversation. It may feel uncomfortable, but that's okay. And just by saying that, I think sets people's expectations and you can kind of let your guard down. I always try to do this if I'm doing any kind of coaching, especially with EQ, but even with DISC, you want to acknowledge that we will make mistakes. The aim is not perfection, but curiosity and understanding. The goal is to share your experiences and perspectives and not to convince someone to change their mind. Yikes, I may be guilty of this. I got to keep working on it. No blaming, shaming, or attacks. Speak about your own views and experiences, so you don't need to spend time describing what other people think. Confidentiality is important. People must feel safe, and that means knowing our words won't be repeated. This is the cornerstone of my business. My nickname has always been the Vault, even before I got into this business. But yeah, why would somebody want to share their innermost thoughts and fears and insecurities if they don't feel that their words are safe? Respect is essential. Even if we disagree, we show we respect each other's right to be heard. And sometimes we need to pause. Some conversations can be re-traumatizing. Go slow, encourage people to pause or step away if needed. Discomfort should be expected, but pain or trauma is a signal to stop. As I said at the beginning, there is a wealth of information in this book, and I have just scratched the surface. If you're interested, I recommend reading Supercommunicators by Charles Duhigg. Great book. Check it out. Well, Heather, that's all for now. Listeners, thanks for joining us. Catch you next time. Bye.
Bye. EQ versus IQ. Join Victoria for an eye-opening look at how soft skills are in fact essential skills. You will discover the limitations of IQ versus EQ, EQ's role in leadership and team harmony, the cornerstones of emotional intelligence, empathy, and self-awareness, how to uncover and develop your own EQ for workplace success. If you are interested in connecting with Victoria for team building, strategic onboarding, coaching, or speaking engagement, you can contact her at discoverwhatworks@gmail.com.
This show is a Twisted Spur media production produced by our very own Heather McPherson. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share with a friend and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.